Wepa everybody. My name is Abigail, and in the spirit of Halloween, I thought I'll share how entrepreneurship can be really, really scary. How so? How about today we talk about the story of how a man killed his business partner and pretended to be him for almost a year. So enough with the yippity yapping, and let's get started. So one of the things that we always learn when we're starting entrepreneurship is choosing your partners well. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you the story of Chris Smith and Ed Shin. See, Chris was a very active young athlete. He loved participating in anything that was water sports, surfing, waterboarding. He had big ambitions of becoming this very well-renowned and respected athlete. Unfortunately, early on in his career, he got an injury, and that made that dream no longer within his reach. But still, he had this ambition to succeed, to make a lot of money, and then sail off into the sunset in his yacht. A dream that a lot of people that love water sports share. So he continued to pursue this new dream by continuing to live in California and hoping to become successful in business. And that's where he meets his partner, Ed Shin. Ed comes from a wealthy Korean American family where he had very high ambitions as well, which melded well with what Chris wanted. So together, they decided to start a partnership and fund a company called the 800 Exchange, where they basically got leads from all the 800 numbers that get called and then gather all those leads and sell it to companies. At first, the first year, the first start of a company, you're creating everything, you're establishing your clients and you're building it, it's all fun, and it did amazingly. They did over $1 million in revenue. Their dreams were starting to become a reality. They were on the right path. Then the second year happened, and once again, they knocked it out of the ballpark. They made even more money that year. And as they continued to grow, so did the stress that Chris felt. See, because Chris, he wanted to be by the ocean. He enjoyed being by the beach. And all these pressures that happen in entrepreneurship started getting to him, to the point that he started thinking, maybe soon it's time for me to leave this and go off into the sunset and just be a bartender by the beach somewhere. But one of the key things that helped anchor him was finding a woman that really made his life worthwhile. He met this girl that he fell completely in love with. He thought that she may be the one, and he wanted to share his life with her. But as time went on, Chris started noticing some things. The first thing that he noticed is that his friend Ed, he was doing some things that maybe were not quite right. He mentioned it to some people. He talked about it with a lawyer. But after that, all that we knew was basically that Chris wanted to be out of the business. And so he signed an agreement with Ed that Ed will buy him out for $1 million. And then after that, all they heard was an email that he sent to his family that he was sailing away like he wanted in his dream in a yacht. He was going to Costa Rica with a lady partner that was not the girl he spoke about being so in love with. It was a former playmate that suddenly appeared in his life, apparently, and that he was willing to sail the world with her. And what happened to his lady friend? He broke up with her through an email, through text. But for Chris's family, as long as he was happy, they were happy. And so sometimes he sent updates, always through email. But what was strange is that this trip that he was supposed to take kept getting dragged and dragged and dragged on, until one day, Chris just stopped communicating. And so, eventually his family reported him missing. Not too long after that, the police brought over the only person, coincidentally, that saw Chris right before he disappeared or went off into this journey. Ed Shin. During Ed Shin's interview or interrogation, he was dressed in a business suit. He looked very clean, very polished, very well put together, a picture-perfect image of a businessman. And every questions that the detectives had for him, he had a very prompt response. He seemed very relaxed. When they asked about what happened when they last saw each other, all Ed said was, oh, well, we signed this agreement, and he proceeded to get drunk, and he pissed and vomited all over the office, which is why he asked his employees to work from home for the next week because he needed the office cleaned. The detectives were, I guess, fooled at this point by his charm and by his confidence, and says, oh, well, I guess it will remain open till we hear from him. Not so long after that, the office that Ed kept saying smelled like piss and vomit that he had cleaned suddenly was left empty, with a big debt that they owed the landlord. So the landlord tried reaching out to them, tried going in there, and funny enough, one of the people next door was a private investigator. So when the private investigator started looking into this, he thought there were a lot of things that did not quite add up. The first thing that did not add up is that when that investigator checked for the passport of Chris, it seemed that he never left the country. As a matter of fact, he hasn't used his passport in years. So where was Chris? In reality, he never left the country. Not long after that, the private investigator asked permission to get into their office. And upon inspection, he saw there's some dark spots, very small, in the walls. Immediately, he called the police, and when the police investigated, which they did not think to look into the office last time they investigated this case, they came to find that there was a lot of blood in the office, and that blood matched Chris Smith. Of course, they brought Ed back into interrogation, and when confronted with the evidence, all of a sudden, Ed said, yes, I killed him, but it was accidental. The story that Ed told was basically Chris was a horrible person. He was drunk and he was mad at him and they began fighting, and eventually he pushed Chris into his office, had him hit the corner of his desk, and that's where Chris fell on the floor and died. After that, Ed said that he hired a Russian man, they grabbed his body and disposed of it. But at this point, I don't think a lot of people believed Ed. You see, Ed had a lot of ambitions, and the 800 Exchange was not his first company that he worked for, or he worked in this area. He worked in a prior company where they were doing something that was very similar. What Ed did was, when the clients were instead of paying the company, he changed the account number to his account. So every time clients paid, they were paying him directly. And he did that for a couple millions of dollars. He eventually got sued, and the court told him he needed to pay around $700,000 or more of penalty fees. And if he did not pay, he was going to prison. That only added to the pressure building up within Ed, where he had debts left and right. So when he met Chris and this company started lifting, he saw his salvation. Until Chris actually discovered what Ed had done in the past. And when he confronted Ed, the money that he needed to buy Chris out, he did not have, because he was trying to pay off all of that debt. So what was the only solution? He killed his business partner, and he almost got away with it for over a year. Thankfully, on June 11th of around 2011, Ed was arrested. And all this time, all that the detectives wanted and what Chris's family wanted was his body back. And he kept saying that, I don't know where his body is. I paid a rancher guy to dispose of it. But when the detectives look at his cell phone got pinged all the way down to close to New Mexico, towards the desert, over 300 miles away. But he said that he never left California. So what detectives did was they tried to find a search team at this point to see if they could find his body. But sadly, they never did. 7 years later, when he had to appear for his final day in court, thankfully, he got the guilty verdict. Now, he is sentenced to life in prison, and that life that he wanted to live all that long ago was never going to be. But the sad part is that the very promising life that Chris was building for himself the right way is never going to be either. So the reason why I share this is because one of the things I share to entrepreneurs is that one of the biggest reasons companies fail is because of team. And when you choose your co-founder or your business partner, you need to choose somebody you trust. With that being said, to all my fellow entrepreneurs and all the other people out there that are enjoying the spooky spirit of Halloween, I hope you have a wonderful holiday and a safe holiday. And hey, I even forgive you. And I won't throw a chancletazo this time. Or will I? You don't know. Maybe it's already on its way there. What's behind you? Until next time.